We are getting ready to start our weekly career accelerator. Just going to get things set up over on our end. I think we're rocking and rolling. Jeremy, let me know if you see us live over on LinkedIn once you do. I see we are live on Instagram, and I think we are live on YouTube right now. We'll give a quick moment just to make sure everything's set up before we jump in. But for those of you already joining us here, welcome, welcome. Happy Friday. If you are celebrating a long weekend, happy long weekend Friday. We are so excited to be here for our weekly Career Accelerator Q&A with you guys. Hopefully everything's getting set up. Jeremy, do you see it over on LinkedIn now? We're good?
We are live on
We're
LinkedIn.
rocking and rolling? Okay, well, okay, I see Katie. Thanks, Katie. Amazing. Thanks for the confirmation. And I see amazing people also joining us over from Instagram and from YouTube. If this is your first time joining our weekly Career Accelerator, well, welcome. I come together with my team now, not just once, but actually twice every week, both Wednesday and Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time to help answer your career questions. We are really big on empowering you to accelerate your career in 90 days or less, whether that is advancing your opportunities in your current organizations and growing your income, whether that's looking for a change and landing into new opportunities within 4 to 8 weeks on average. We want to help you get there. And of course, cover everything in between because we know that there's a lot of nuance. Everyone's career is different, and we want to make sure that you're getting the support that you need. So, as perhaps a quick reintroduction, my name's Tiffany Human. I'm a CEO and career coach of Tiffany Human Career Coaching Inc. And today we have a very special guest who's going to be joining me on Fridays for our Career Accelerator Q&A. This is Jeremy, my COO for our business, and also an incredible entrepreneur and business owner in his own right. So thanks for being here, Jeremy. He's going to help us moderate today's session so that we can take all of your questions. We'll try to run through as many as we can. Please don't be shy to share your questions right in the comment section on LinkedIn or on Instagram or on YouTube because we will be seeing those coming through. Thank you, Yaba. So nice to have you here as well. And just so you guys know, we do stream at the same time across LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube so that you can go on the platform that you feel most comfortable asking your questions, okay? So if LinkedIn's your jam, fantastic. If you prefer doing that over on Instagram, just hop over to my Instagram right now. You'll be able to do that, or YouTube if that's easier, okay, guys? Maybe as we hop in, since Jeremy is one of our newer guests from my team joining us for our lives, we do want to take a moment, Jeremy, just to share a quick background of your experience. And for all of you that aren't aware, Jeremy is not only our COO for my business, but also one of our executive advisors really supporting our more senior and executive level clients. So why don't you share a little bit more about that? And we're going to take some questions.
Amazing. It's great to be here. Great to see everyone. A real quick intro on myself. I've kind of, navigated 3 big buckets in my career. At the outset, I grew from a managerial role all the way up to VP at an late age, and then decided to start my own business, investing about $50,000 and turning it into $75 million in lifetime revenue. We sold that company a couple of years ago. And then following that, I rejoined corporate by joining the C-suite of a publicly traded company. And now I love advising entrepreneurs, C-level executives, senior executives, really trying to coach them through resilience, communication, and so on. So it's so great to be here, and I'm so honored to be part of this team. So can't wait to see your questions and answer them.
Thanks, Jeremy. That's a great intro. And I think it's really fun having you here too, because whether any of our participants are looking to land a new role or accelerate their growth in their organizations, we know that there's a lot of decision-making power at the top. And so we want to make sure that we're even pulling on some of your insights today, Jeremy, of, how you've really led such successful teams and some of the things that our own participants can already start thinking about. I remember in our live just from Wednesday of this week, we got some great questions around how to speak to executives with confidence, how to integrate in a new role, now reporting into leadership for the first time. So we'll see what questions come through today, guys. And please don't be shy. Hello to Stephanie and hello to Katie joining us over on LinkedIn from what I can see. Let me know, Jeremy, if I'm missing any comments over on the LinkedIn side. And also a huge welcome to everyone joining us from Instagram. Let's kind of get it going. I'm going to see if there's any questions that are already coming through. And I think we got a couple ahead of time too, Jeremy. So as we're waiting for some questions, we can already start taking some that you might have received from people earlier today.
Yeah, so I got one question here. So the question is, how could I identify and leverage my unique strengths to consistently perform at the highest levels in my role?
Mm. Oh, I like that. That's a pretty deep question. So, one of the best ways to start doing that is seeing how your own strengths actually tie to the priorities and objectives, not just of your role, but also how that builds into the broader organizational objectives. Okay. So, for instance, if let's say, Jeremy, this is your question as an example, and you're like, I'm really good at like strategic thinking. Like, that's something that just comes really naturally to me. Challenge doesn't scare me. I love taking a something and making it into a bigger picture vision and thinking really strategically and critically about that. So if that's something that's really one of your biggest strong suits, then you could think about if I want to use that to perform at the highest level in my role, well, now you're going to want to see, okay, how does my work in doing that strength really well actually help me better achieve the goals of my C-level team or of our departmental objectives or of my VP's vision? How can I draw a better parallel between the work I do in my day to day that's going to help them achieve those goals faster? And this might require a bit of an adjustment in your actual work scope if you're like, well, my current work actually isn't allowing me to do as much of that. Or maybe I'm kind of caught up in a lot of fires every day because there's been a lot of restructures in the organization and we're lean and we've lost a lot of people. And so it's just kind of catching up pretty much day after day as opposed to doing the work that really matters. And so that might actually lead to having a conversation with your own manager on that about kind of the shift you want to see in your role so that you can actually leverage your strengths properly and bring even more value for you and the business. And as a little pro tip for everyone, because we're getting into the tail end of the year, this is a great moment to bring forward those conversations because you're kind of thinking about, how the year is panning out. You've got a few short months left. You want to make them your best. And you also want to make sure that you are focused on your own development. So you can use that almost as a segue as we're entering the end of the year with your manager of some shifts that might need to happen in your scope or how you feel like some of your key strengths are actually being underutilized in the way that they really can be leveraged better in supporting your VP or supporting your C-level team on some of their biggest objectives between now and December. So I hope that helps to give a little bit of clarity for the person who had asked that question beforehand. I think they wanted to be anonymous. But anyways, thank you so much for sharing that and kicking it off. I got a few questions, I think, coming here over on the Instagram side. So I'm going to go ahead and pull those up. And again, guys, please, there is no such thing as a stupid question here. This is a safe space. We just want to make sure that you get the support that you need. We know there's a lot of information out there. It can feel overwhelming and stressful. And our goal is to really make sure that you can walk away with proven strategies that work and that are working for our clients every single day. And we want you to be able to experience that kind of traction as well. Okay, so I'm going to scroll back down because I think I saw a question here. Okay, it was from, let me just pull that up. It was from Janani. Okay. So Janani was asking, working in an aging work culture in mid-20s, how to build networks, build value, and be part of a more exciting projects outside of my small team who prefers to push workloads. So I'm gathering from your question, Janani, you're sharing that you're kind of in the younger stage of your career, but the organization you're part of is a little bit more of an older demographic. And so you're trying to figure out how can you maybe build effective networks and inroads with those people when there's maybe a little bit of an age gap, first and foremost, but also in terms of also taking on exciting projects that might energize you more than what they might view as energizing in their viewpoint. So one of the good ways you can go about this is starting from a place of respect in terms of what they've brought into the organization, maybe the fact that they've been there some time or they've seen a lot of different facets of how the company has evolved over the years. But I think it can also be a great idea for you to think about certain contacts in the organization that you do feel a little bit more comfortable with, right? They might be someone that's older, but you still really admire the way that they lead their team, or you love how they, take a certain portion of their department and run with it and support their teams in a certain way. Or maybe it's a presentation that they gave recently in a town hall and you're like, I can really latch onto that and see how does that translate to my work. And don't be shy in also advocating for the things that you want to be able to implicate more. Because just being, at a younger stage in your career or a younger age in general, doesn't mean that you don't have a lot of value that you can bring to them. They might be there longer, they might be older, but fresh perspective is amazing. And I encourage that a lot. I used to encourage that a lot with my corporate teams, as I did have a good balance of young professionals, mid-stage professionals, and more senior professionals. And I always really appreciated the fresh perspective that some of the younger talent brought in that helped us to think differently, that saw things from a different lens, not in a way of causing resistance, but in a way of helping us to think differently. And so I want you to really take confidence in that, Janani, for you of how can I do that in my own organization? And who are some of those contacts that can be allies to me that I already feel a good connection with, that I feel some type of rapport, and start building on that, whether coming out of a meeting you've been in with them, maybe booking them for a one-on-one coffee chat to learn more about what they're doing in their department and how that's really of interest to you, and then tie that back to the work that you're doing and how you can see some great synergies there. It's going to feel very customized to what your situation is, but I'm just giving you a few of these ideas that can help you take action right away. Hopefully that helps. And I'd love to get your input, Jeremy, because I know you've also kind of led teams from different levels of seniority. And what would be your recommendation of building that network and value and kind of taking on more exciting projects when there is a little bit of that age gap in terms of work culture?
I think one of the most important things across any level of seniority is showing a genuine interest or being very open and curious. And that'll come through by asking lots of questions. Every opportunity that you have, every touch point that you have with a leader or any colleague, frankly, in your organization is an opportunity to create a halo around yourself. And this is one of the things that we teach our clients all the time is how to create your personal brand. And Tiffany says it really, really well, which is it's not just who you know, but it's who knows you, right? So what are people saying when you're not in the room? And one of the ways that you want to do that is by shining when you ask questions to your leaders, to the senior leadership. And that could be things like, what's top of mind to you right now? What are the biggest priorities of the organization? And then trying to figure out how you could play a role in that by asking interesting or interested questions. But at that stage of your career, it's really about showing a lot of intellectual curiosity, and then taking opportunities when they present themselves to show that you're interested, you want to work on that particular project, for example, and then by even thinking about ways that you could create content or thought leadership within your team, so that you're picked for those ambitious
Mm.
projects when they do arise.
I love that point, Jeremy. And on that, can you share maybe like a few, 3 or 5 specific questions you would recommend our participants share with, let's say, their leaders if they're looking to build that rapport and build that connection better? If it's a senior leader they haven't been exposed to as much, but they finally now are in front of them, they have that coffee chat. What would be like 3 to 5 questions that you'd recommend that they already lean into to maybe better understand their priority areas and how they can elevate themselves in their own role?
That's an amazing question, and just as a note, it's obviously dependent on where you're at in your career, the type of organization you're working for. But for example, in a startup context, let's say you work for a privately owned startup, and you're meeting with the executive team or a senior team, and you've recently raised capital, right? Your organization has successfully closed a Series A, B, or C. One of the types of questions you could ask your leadership team is, how are you thinking about deploying our recent funds? Is there a particular project that is going to take the forefront in terms of the use of capital, right? And that'll give you insight into where the leadership's thinking about investing with the business, right? In another setting, you could ask questions around, let's say, AI is, a theme that's really important for your organization. You could talk to your leadership about, how do you see Gen AI coming into our organization, and what are some of the consumer-facing products that are top of mind to you? That's another thing that you could maybe ask in the context of technology and innovation. And then another type of question you could ask, typically in publicly traded organizations, at the time of earnings or reporting, within the month of within a month of reporting earnings, you may want to ask questions like, what's top of mind for leadership when they're going to report earnings, right? That'll give you insight into the biggest opportunities, as well as the most pressing problems that are top of mind to leadership. And those are going to give you insights into how you could wedge yourself into asking questions or offering insights, and basically shining, highlighting things that you're working on. Always make sure to tie in what you're working on and how it drives business results, however small. It's just really important that senior leaders see the contribution you're making and that you're thinking beyond your role, but at a company level or at a divisional level. Hopefully that
Mm.
makes sense.
It makes a total sense. I actually used to do that a lot within my time at L'Oreal, Jeremy, when we would have like corporate wide initiatives that weren't necessarily tied with my brand that I was leading or our team, but I could tell just from the way that our leadership team was talking about it that it had a lot of importance. And so, even approaching some of those stakeholders in your companies around what it is that they're up to, what is the plan for that project, what kind of support are they looking for, and for you to be able to see, maybe you can implicate yourself in that, maybe not, maybe it's not going to be worth it, but just by showing that interest in how you're willing to lend a helping hand and put yourself out there in a way that might not be your usual day to day, but can actually get you on the radar of some pretty important internal influencers as it ties to your progression, it can be very beneficial. And it can also challenge you in a different way that's exciting and brings you a certain level of motivation even beyond your day-to-day work. So I think those are really practical questions, Jeremy. Thanks for sharing that. We did get another question that I'm going to pull up here. I think it was from Yaba. How to deal with a boss who asks for different versions of the same report multiple times. Feels like doing mundane repetitions and not particularly productive. And I would agree with you, Yaba. That is frustrating, right? I mean, whether it's a presentation or whether it's a report or whether it's just asking you to do the same thing over and over again, there's likely two ways you can handle this. This is either a process opportunity or a communication opportunity. In your case, I think it's actually a combination of the two. What I mean by process opportunity, it could be that as you're handling this kind of report, there might not be enough accountability at the very beginning to lock your boss in to like one version of what they want it to be with you. And so maybe they're telling you, yeah, but okay, I need you to do this report. And they give you a little bit of information to go off of. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to go do that report. And then 2 days go by, you give the report, and they're like, oh, okay, actually, no, I want it to be like this. Da, 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 da. And you're like, okay, I'm going to go back and redo it. Da, da, da. And then 2 days later, you give the next version. Oh, no, actually, I want it to go back like this. So if that's been the case, I see this as a big process opportunity for you to actually lock your boss in more at the beginning and use this as an example to do that. What I mean is you can say, let's say your boss's name is Michelle. Okay. You could say, Michelle, as I go ahead and work on this next report, I do want to make sure I'm being as productive and efficient in my time in putting it together. I noticed that in the last report that I did with your support, there was quite a bit of back and forth that led to a lot of changes that could have been saved in terms of time and efficiency. What I'm proposing moving forward for this report is that we actually take an hour together now or in the next day where I can run through all the questions I have to make sure I have a very clear picture of what you want me to include and what we want that to look like. That way, when I do present my first version, it's going to be very in line with that, with less of that back and forth exchange. Would that work for you? And so, like that, you're using a prior frustration moment to actually dictate an improvement in your process. And why I said communication is part of it is because now you're communicating your needs more effectively with your boss instead of just feeling like you're getting the brunt of all of this and be like, well, they're my boss. I guess I can't tell them anything. No, you absolutely can. You absolutely can give them that feedback because remember, you doing that report properly is going to look good on them as well. And if it's taking you double the time or three times the time of managing these back and forths, and on top of it, you feel like ripping your hair out because you're frustrated, that's only going to implicate the quality that you put into that report. So it's truly a win-win when you do handle it that way. And I wanted to give you that verbiage that you can inspire from. So I hope that is helpful for you, Yaba, of kind of taking control of that and showing like that, hey, if you support me better in this and we have a better process at the outset, like we're not going to have these back and forths. Just so you know too, yeah, but this could be a sign of your boss just being very wishy-washy and being an indecisive manager. Managers that are less confident in their abilities can come through in indecisiveness where they're not able to make a decision and stick to it. I have a whole course called Toxic Boss Bootcamp where I go into much more depth on that. If ever that's something you're interested in, feel free to DM me over on Instagram because I know that's where you're joining us from. But an indecisive boss doesn't need to feel like there's no way out of this. There's no way I can improve that. But you do want to take control of that situation and isolate where the problem is. And as I mentioned, it's likely the process opportunity paired with some improved communication that will help you both. Okay, so go get them. We're rooting for you. This is the kind of support we actually support a lot of our clients on because we know that we can't always choose who our boss is. We can't always choose how they are. They're not always the best manager, and that's okay. That's part of the game. It's going to build up your muscle, your learning curve of how to navigate those difficulties because you're going to have to face those difficulties in your career. And I would much rather that you have the right types of frameworks and templates to use to make sure that you feel confident in those moments. Any thoughts from you, Jeremy, on that? I'm going to just see if we got any other questions on this side. I do see another
I
one.
I
So,
I
yeah.
don't have anything to add. I got a question by email actually,
Okay. Let's take that
on
one next.
interviews.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I don't know if
Sure.
you so the question is, here, let me just get it right here. How could I make sure I'm coming across as the best candidate, for a leadership role when interviewing?
How can I come across as the best candidate for a leadership role? Oh, I love that. I mean, I can answer it too, Jeremy, but I would love your take on that first because I know you've interviewed for quite a that and you actually support a lot of our clients on interviewing for more senior level executive roles. Why don't we get your insights first and then I'll add on?
So I'll keep it short. From my perspective, and this is one of the things that we really focus on with our clients, is one, by and large, communication will dictate the level of performance, not just in interviews, but in terms of acceleration within your organizations. In interviews, there are typically two things that most interviewers, whether they're hiring managers, HR professionals, recruiters, are really thinking about. The first is, can I see this person as part of the team? That's number one. And then number two is this person the solution to our biggest opportunity or our most pressing problem area? Effectively, these two fundamental questions are inherent to every interview, every leader when thinking or meeting anyone that they work with. So I would kind of leave the details to you, Tiffany, but I
Yeah,
think
sure.
those two
Good
big
setting of the
questions are
stage.
really important to think about.
Yeah, and maybe just before I jump into my answer too on that, it's a great question. We actually hosted an amazing Nail Your Interview workshop on Monday of this week, and the feedback has been really, really so inspiring and heartwarming. Thank you to everyone who had joined us live. And I'm going to have Jeremy actually drop the replay link for those of you joining us over on LinkedIn if you missed it. Definitely take a moment this weekend to watch it. You will thank us later. It's extremely practical and really helpful where we essentially shared the strategies that are working for our clients this year to secure anywhere from 100K to 350K roles. And we want you to be able to leverage all of that as well. And if you are joining us over on Instagram, just comment workshop on today's live and I'll share the replay with you in your DMs just after this. Okay. So if it is someone over on Instagram, just comment workshop and we'll send you our replay of our Nail Your Interview workshop that we had earlier this week. Okay, so in addition to what Jeremy shared about how to kind of position yourself and the key questions you want to have answered more top level, if you are looking to really seal the deal for an executive position or a senior leadership position in a role, part of it is yes, your confidence and your assertiveness of owning your track record and key examples that illustrate that you can deliver in what they're looking for. So, obviously, going through the description of the job with a fine tooth comb is the starting point because they will tell you outright the key things they're expecting you to be able to do. And don't just go into the interview talking surface level or hypothetically of, for that kind of situation, here's how I would handle it. Tell them specifically how you have handled it and literally prove to them by what you did, how you did it, and the result that it brought in the way that you're structuring your answers so that they see very clearly, wow, Jeremy doesn't just like have a great background, which is why we're interviewing him in the first place. Like he's showing like example after example after example of how he's actually done what we need him to do and how it brought results for his other companies. And if he can do that there, he can do that with us. A good thing that you want to keep in mind with this too is ask questions, ask clarifying questions. We went into a lot of depth on that inside my Nail Your Interview workshop this week because this is a two-way street. And especially as you get into more senior level roles, they want to see you as part of the team. They want to see how you think. They want to see what your thought process is. So by asking really important and clarifying questions in conjunction with their questions, you're now getting into just like a two-way dialogue. So when they're asking tell me about a time when you dealt with X challenge and how did you overcome that? And you share your answer, you can then follow up with a question like, for these types of challenges, how do our teams at Shopify really really support in moments of challenge like that, or with a recent challenge like this that might have happened within the organization, what was one best practice that you found the teams really led based off of XYZ, or something that's going to start getting more insight in return of how they operate, because that is going to allow you to pull insights of how they work, what their pain points are, where their opportunities are, and you can weave that into your answers. Okay. So, those are just a few other things that you want to keep in mind, especially for more of a leadership oriented role. There's likely going to be some people management questions around that. So, just make sure you have examples, not just of how you've led your teams, but also how you've grown your teams, right? That's a great sign of an amazing leader if you've not just led your teams effectively, but the way that you led your teams allowed them to get promoted, to get internally moved somewhere else, or that allowed them to grow their wings in some way. So think of these types of examples. I think it will be really helpful for you in elevating your candidacy for that kind of position. Yeah.
And one last thing, in case we overlooked it, it's so critical to tie everything back to the business in terms of metrics, in terms of things that you will deliver. So business drivers, whether that's revenue drivers, cost drivers,
Yeah.
EBITDA. You really want to be in a position to articulate how you joining the executive team or the leadership team, in addition to everything that Tiffany said, is how it will drive business results for them as quickly as possible on the basis of your experience.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. Hopefully that helps. We got a few other questions from Instagram, and then I see one also, I think, from Dale over on LinkedIn. So, Dale, we're coming to you next. Hang tight. This question is from DKT Valami. What to do if you have a warning involving HR for not turning things around timely, but you like the company and want to move to another internal team? How do you handle this? It's an excellent question where you probably need to do a little bit of perception alignment and damage control. Okay. So just know that if you've gotten a warning from HR, that's not an end all. That's an opportunity for you to improve yourself. What's really important with that warning, though, is that you have clarity around what that warning was. And I think in your case, it sounded quite clear that it was not turning things around fast enough. So this could be an opportunity for you to better align on expectations. When you are given tasks moving forward, don't just take it. Ask specifically, what is the deadline I'm up against? What is the drop dead date that you would need this by? As my manager, how long would you expect this to take me? Right? You want to kind of set that tone right out of the gate so that when you are working through it, there's no surprises for anybody. If your boss says, oh, you know what, Janet, I think that this would actually take about a day, shouldn't take you more than a day. Well, now you know your boss's expectation. So if it's taking you more than a day or you think it's going to take you more than a day, don't let it go past that day without raising that. You can work through it and you could say, you know what? We're halfway through the day. I think this is actually going to take me longer. I'm going to go ahead and loop in my boss and give them a heads up that because of XYZ and this part that you want to go more in depth on to provide the best result, you'll likely get it done by the next day. And you want to make sure that that's okay with them. Sometimes this is really overlooked when we get warnings or feedback from managers where we feel like we don't have as much control, but in fact, we do. And the main thing is just setting and resetting the expectation. Your boss will be more than happy to support you in that so long as they know, oh, okay. Okay, do you need any more support from me? Is there anything that's blocking you that I can help with? Right. And now you're having a more constructive conversation about it. And you're showing also to your boss that you're actioning that feedback from HR, right? You're actioning something that you're like, okay, I'm not going to let that get in my head. I want to grow here. I like this company. I want to improve myself. I want to show that I'm open to feedback. So show it through your actions and help monitor the progress of those action steps. So that way you're just like checking it off and that will be much better received than letting it tap and knock on your confidence. Okay. So hopefully that helps you out, but totally rooting for you on that. Don't be discouraged if you got that warning. Let it be a little bit of a wake up call of, okay, I think that's my opportunity to better set expectations and communicate with my manager around how I'm leading my work. Okay. And by the way, just as an aside, if the reason why you haven't been turning things around timely is because maybe you're overloaded or you're overworked or what you've been given has not come with clear directions, that is also something that you can express, right? If you feel like this isn't only on you, this is also how you're being managed, that's something that you might want to express feedback on as well. Okay. Dale, let's come to your question. I'm going to try to show it. I know it's a long one, so it's probably going to cut it off, but either which way, I'll read the full thing out here. So Dale was saying, I attended your interview session on Monday. Thank you so much, Dale. I found it very helpful. Thank you. I had an interview on Wednesday with my previous company. I was displaced earlier this year, so I still know many people at the company. I've had a couple of those colleagues put in a good word for me. I worked my network hard before the interview. How hard do I work to ask others to advocate for me after the interview? I don't want to overwhelm or annoy the hiring manager with people advocating for me, but I don't want to miss out on this great opportunity. Are there any rules or best successful practices for having your network advocate for you? I will say, Dale, like there's no such thing as too much advocacy. I will tell you, if like 20 people are going to this hiring manager being like, did you hire Dale yet? Is he on the team? Is he joining? They're gonna be like, okay, let's just bring this guy in. Like clearly too many people think great things about him. Clearly we made a mistake months ago displacing him. We need him back, right? So I don't think it's anything that would work against you, and you don't have to worry about annoying people. I think there is a way though of handling it so you don't over exhaust those connections, right? So what I would recommend, Dale, if there was like a select number of them that have really gone that extra mile of advocating for you into that interview process, get back to them maybe via email if that's the way you've been exchanging with them. If it's on LinkedIn, do it on LinkedIn. But you could say something like, hey John, wanted to let you know how much I appreciated your support up to this point in the interview process with X company. Your support has meant so much to me, and I really wanted to express my immense gratitude. I'm pleased to share that I'm, actively in the interview process right now, and I'm hopeful that things will continue to progress favorably. If there's anything else you recommend that I do or that I can support you on in helping on the inside to push that through, please do let me know. Looking forward to hearing back. Right? So, just something like that. It's not a hard push, but you're coming from a place of appreciation and gratitude. And you're still kind of putting an ask out there of like, if there's anything else that you can do or that they can do to support you in that, like, you're really, really happy to discuss that further. I mean, that's a good way of going about it, but please do not be shy if there's multiple people that are rooting for you, because guess what? That's going to translate when you join the organization again. And you will have already been building one of the key things I coach our clients on inside our program, which is building your cheer squad. This is something that has served me extremely well, my teams extremely well, and our clients very well, because when you have more advocates and allies on the inside of your organization, that will be fundamental in accelerating your growth track. beyond your boss, who is just one of those stakeholders, there are multiple levels, multiple layers of people who you want to be speaking your praises. And if this is already happening at the interview phase, Dale, it's a good sign. Okay. Let us know if you do need any additional support. I should have maybe mentioned this earlier, but we do offer a free clarity call with our team. If you are looking for more one on one, do it with you support, or are interested in working with me directly, we would love to speak with you. I know Jeremy already dropped that link over on our LinkedIn comments. If you want to go ahead and get that on our calendar, we would love to get to know you more and see how we can seal the deal in your next steps and accelerate your growth from there. If you are joining us over on Instagram, you could actually just comment call, and I will send you the details to book that free session with us so we can get to know you better and share more how we can work together in your next steps and make this your breakthrough year. This is really a pivotal moment in the year. We're getting in the home stretch, right, Jeremy? So definitely one you want to capitalize on. Any other thoughts from you, Jeremy, on that one? I'm going to just go and pull up another question that I'm seeing over here from Instagram.
I think that covers it really well. Excuse me.
Okay. All right. We have a question here from Mia. What to do when what to do when as a manager, you feel that there is some microaggression towards you from your team, but you don't know what it is about and no one says directly what is going on. Yeah. Okay. So as a manager, you feel that there's some microaggressions towards you from your team. The most important thing here, Mia, is talk to your team individually. Okay. This isn't something that you want to do in a group conversation. You want to have a private one on one meeting with each of your respective team members. And you want to come from a place of empathy, of maybe understanding that there's a lot going on right now, or maybe it's a stressful time and you understand that there's different things that are happening that might be creating a little bit of higher tensions. And then you can share, Mia, that said, you have felt in some of the recent exchanges a little bit of tension or a little bit of friction in the interactions. And you wanted to just simply put it out there to sense if there's anything going on, if there's anything that you can do differently to better support them. You want to give them that safe space to talk about it with you, because you believe in them, you believe in the work that they're doing. And as their manager, it's really critical that there is that open line of communication between the both of you, right? And then you could put it on them and say, do you want to share anything? Is there anything coming up? Do you see where I'm coming from on that? And that will give them the opportunity to share if there is something on their mind. And if you're sensing that they're not saying there is something, but there is something, don't be shy to kind of probe a little bit further. You could say something and draw it as like a comparative to how they were prior. This is a good technique, Mia. So if you could say, okay, well, it's good to know that there's nothing particularly that's coming up for you right now. Maybe on that note, though, just in terms of like the tone that we've been talking to with each other, that the way that we sort of had our recent exchanges, it does feel a little bit different than how we've had conversations in like the last 2 months. And so that's why I am picking up on that. I really care about you. And I want to make sure if there is anything that we're giving both of ourselves the opportunity to talk that through. Right. So sometimes when you draw this parallel of like, I know how you are, like, this isn't like you, or something seems off. It's coming from a human place, not like the Mia manager place. And sometimes in our work settings, we have to put on the human hat and look at the person beyond the professional. That's really important, and show that level of care. And having these conversations, Mia, will likely open up something that you can then build on and get to the source of it. Hopefully that helps. Yeah. Okay. We're rocking and rolling here, Jeremy. My gosh, we're getting through quite a few questions. You're so welcome, Dale. I'm really happy that that was useful for you. Any other questions you're seeing on LinkedIn, Jeremy, that I've missed? I'm going to keep scrolling here.
Not on LinkedIn, but I got quite a few from email for those who couldn't attend live, so I could always
Okay,
share
yeah,
another
sure.
question. So I got one. It's how can I become more confident in high stakes meetings and presentations?
Oh, I love this one. Okay, so obviously the presentation can be anything, but let's say a good high stakes presentation is maybe with your leadership team, or maybe a departmental head, or maybe it's your first time presenting in a new role and you're like, I want to make a really good impression. So, a few things you might want to keep in mind. First off, prepare. Okay. Prepare, prepare, prepare. You want to make sure that you are the master of your knowledge going into that presentation. Okay. And remember that no matter what level of seniority you are the closest to your area of the business. So even if you're presenting to your CEO, and I would tell myself this all the time in our corporate presentations and leadership presentations, and it's helped our clients so much just seeing it from this lens where yes, you might be presenting to someone very experienced or very seasoned in the company or someone with like ultimate decision making power, but they aren't the one that are doing your work day in and day out. They're not the ones leading your part of the business, and they're actually counting on you to share that with them so that you together can make a more informed decision of how to proceed. And so when you start thinking about that of like, okay, it's true. Like I might not have all the answers, but I can do my darndest best to make sure I feel really prepared in what I'm presenting and trying to even anticipate types of questions they might ask you based off of what you're going to share. You could run that through with your manager. One pro tip that I highly, highly recommend that's going to skyrocket your confidence in these types of high stakes presentations before even getting to the real presentation. Pre-vet this with other decision makers who might be in that same meeting with you. So let's say you're presenting to your CEO, but you know that your head of operations is going to be there. Maybe your head of PR is going to be there. Maybe your head of commercial is going to be there. Already share with them the essence of what you want to present and see if they have any thoughts or objections as to what you're presenting. That's going to give you all of that time to preempt things that you can actually fix and refine so that when you actually deliver it in the moment of truth, you've already done your due diligence, right? You've already done that prep work to know, hey, look, this is going a lot smoother than I thought, and it shows a level of confidence in you that you've done your homework. So that's definitely something you're going to want to do. I would say practicing it. Okay. That kind of goes beyond the preparation piece. The preparation, in my eyes, is more of like preparing the material, making sure you have your ducks in a row, the right data, the right decision making points. Think about what is the outcome that you want from that meeting and make sure that your presentation is aligned with making that outcome happen. Do not overshare. Okay. You want to bring in the right details in the right way so that it gets you to that outcome faster. So that's all part of the preparation piece. The practice piece is actually practicing it. I highly recommend practicing it out loud so that you can hear how it sounds. You can make sure it sounds fluid and you can build up your own confidence in the delivery. Okay. And then I'd say beyond that, also prepare for questions, right? So prepare ahead of time of what types of questions you'll get and already have whether it's resources you need handy or like I have a feeling they might ask about this. You don't want to be scrambling during that and being like, "Oh, hang on, let me find an answer. I'm not sure." Try to already prep that ahead of time so it shows that you're really in control. And even as a quick extension to that, with your manager, you can decide between you and them who's going to handle what kinds of questions, right? You might want to say to your manager, if any questions come on this, I'm going to take the lead on that. But if these types of questions, would you be open maybe taking some of those so we don't feel like we're trumping each other in our answers? So that can also be really helpful. Okay. But the most important thing, I'm going to summarize this, is remember that stop thinking about the presentation or this high stakes moment as you versus them. That's combative. That's like, oh my gosh, there's too much pressure. What if they come at me? What if they're asking questions? What if I don't have the answers? And you're like, oh, I'm trying to get there. What you want to do is think about it as us versus the opportunity, us versus the problem, us versus the challenge. And then you presenting is going to help you together come to that target outcome. It's a really good mindset shift when it comes to presenting with confidence, especially any type of high stakes setting. Okay. Hopefully that helps. It's a great question. Any thoughts for that, Jeremy? Because I know you've you've done a lot of these presentations, that you've also had your teams do a lot of those presentations. What really stood out to you in terms of like effective delivery in a high stakes presentation?
I would just add two things, one during the presentation and one post meeting. During the presentation, if ever you are challenged on information, on data, on numbers, and you don't have the answer, to Tiffany's earlier point, avoid oversharing or worse, avoid saying something that is factually incorrect. It is actually better to suggest coming back to the team, to the leadership, folks in the room or outside of the room, that you will come back to them with the appropriate data, that you don't have it readily available. You could give an estimate if you are confident in that number. Just avoid giving numbers that are incorrect.
Yeah.
That's tip number one. And just a little last pro tip post meeting for those of you that do presentations in real life. Okay. There are micro moments that occur immediately right after the meeting, in the hallways, in the boardroom, that allow you to speak to those leaders, to highlight what you've been working on, to do a quick follow up on what they thought was interesting, whether it was your part or someone else's part, to get a pulse on the business, get a handshake in, see what's top of mind to them. But those micro moments are really, really important, especially if you're presenting to folks that are coming from out of town, from international markets, that are, visiting your HQ. So you really want to capitalize on those micro moments, even if you're walking back in a hallway. You'd be surprised what you could do in 30 seconds or a minute.
Yeah, it's a great additional pointers. Thanks, Jeremy. I'm going to come back over on Instagram for a quick second because we've got some other questions. This is actually a follow up from DKT Valami. They were asking, but would you mention the issues to the new manager for another opening inside the company? So I think it was going back to getting the warning from HR about not being timely. Would you actually share that with a new manager regarding another position in the company? No, I wouldn't proactively divulge that, because especially if that's about one isolated moment in your work, that's not indicative or representative of the value that you bring in a new position. So, just think of it like an analogy, like dating. Okay. If you're going on a first date and you go into that date and you lead with like something that went bad in a prior relationship, that person's probably going to run for the hills, right? Probably not going to be your gateway into that conversation. Maybe you'll share that at one point, but you're not going to open with that. So I would certainly recommend leading with the things that you're excited about your track record, about the areas of expertise that you've built that would help them see why you are valuable to consider bringing into that new role. And if it comes up, you can address the warning and you could say, yes, that is something that has happened. And here's actually 3 of the key action steps that I've already been putting in place with my manager that's helped me move in a really positive direction. Then you're just nipping that, right? You show that you're open to growth, you're open to learning, and you're not going to let setbacks hold you back from other opportunities, especially internal ones. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of additional guidance to go off of. Okay, we have another question from Beliefful. Hi, I had lunch with the upper management for potential position and would love to know how to follow up to show interest and make sure they keep me in mind for potential opportunities. Oh, well, first off, congrats. I love that. Kudos to you for securing that type of lunch. A great way that you can follow up with them is reiterate some of the things that they shared in the conversation, show that attention to detail, show that you paid attention to what they shared with you, and weave that into the follow up. So, this could be done via email if that's the way that you've been interacting up to that point. It could be as simple as, like, hey, Margaret, thank you again so much for taking the time to meet with me for our lunch on Tuesday. The conversation was so inspiring, and I really particularly enjoyed learning more about your priorities for our team between now and the rest of the year. It got me really energized to continue doubling down on the efforts I'm putting in that will support you in that. And, on that note, simply to reiterate, if there's any other opportunities that you can see as a great fit for my skill set tied with the goals that I shared with you in our touch point, I would be really open to keeping that dialogue going. Again, very grateful for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend or something like that. Coming from a place of appreciation and gratitude, once again, highlighting something that you appreciated and really stood out to you from the conversation, tying in how you bring that additional value, wanting to be kept top of mind, and initiating that like continuity of conversation, because that's really important. I talked about it earlier about building that cheer squad internally, and you definitely want to have some of these, big leaders in that cheer squad. And that's not like a one-off thing. This is like an ongoing type of dialogue and exposure type of thing. So I think you've set a really good foundation for yourself, and hopefully that will allow things to continue. Any thoughts from you, Jeremy, on that as well?
Over the longer period or the longer arc of your position, just becoming the person known to deliver on whatever the thing you are doing or responsible for or working towards, it just creates a halo around you where people are talking about you as a problem solver, as a fixer, as someone who is resourceful. At the end of the day, what you really want to create for yourself is to be known as someone who has what we call high agency, right? So as you progress in seniority in your career, you have to show an ability to be resourceful, to do more with less, to have a capacity to ask the right questions and to just deliver, right? And as you kind of check off each one of those, you build you basically a reputation that is truly uh, you know thick, that is has a track record of success, that you're collaborative. So bottom line, just show that you could deliver on the things that are being expected of you and show proactiveness in trying to do more, to being a problem solver for others. This
Yeah.
is really important.
Spot on. That's a great way to share that too, Jeremy. I know we are almost at time, but we do have one last question that I see came over from Instagram. So I'll take that one. And Jeremy, let me know if over on YouTube or LinkedIn, if you see any last questions that we've missed. This one was from Prebiba. How to come across as experienced candidates in an interview when there are even more senior experienced competitors. Okay, this is a good one. I will reiterate, Prebiba, if you missed my Nail Your Interview workshop earlier this week, you got to watch it. It's going to answer a lot of that for you. Just comment workshop over on Instagram on the live right now, and I'll send you the replay after this. And if you are joining us over on LinkedIn, as an example, we've actually put the link right there on YouTube that you can check out, guys. It's only available for a limited time, so highly recommend watching it in the next few days. Okay, but specifically to your question, Prabiba, we actually had one of our clients, Sabrina, who was the epitome of this, where she had a stellar background but was up against other candidates that were more the ideal candidate on paper. And just to give some further context, this was initially coming through for her in an automated rejection from her application, because what we came to learn after activating her existing network as a follow up to turn that rejection into her dream job, which she has now landed and is 90 days in and crushing it there, we came to learn that they were actually looking to bring in more internal candidates rather than external candidates. So that rejection wasn't even a reflection of her candidacy. It was more just a reflection of their decision-making criteria. But what we found, and we really honed in on the interview strategies I share in my workshop, and that really helped her to come through confidently in the way she expressed her value, in the way she expressed her track record, in the way that she showed that hunger and fight to go for this, even despite getting an initial rejection on that opportunity. So even though you might not have faced that exact same thing, the way you want to think about it is there's always more experienced people than us. Okay. Even I remember one of my CEOs at L'Oreal had specifically said this in one of our meetings, and it's just stuck with me for a very long time. He said, I purposely hire people in our heads of departments that are smarter than me, because I know I don't know everything and I'm counting on them to be smarter at me in their particular areas. So just know that even at the highest of levels, right, there's always opportunity for people to be stronger in a certain area or smarter in a certain domain. But that's not helpful, right? At the end of the day, Prabiba, you're getting into these interview processes because you've earned your way there and they see value. And so, what we really recommend time and time again for our clients is that we want to elevate what you do have, not play into what you don't have. And remember, you don't even know what the company is evaluating in that decision making criteria in terms of percentage. So maybe in your eyes, you're like, oh, there's more experienced competitors or more experienced candidates because they have 10 years of experience and I have 6. But in reality, maybe that's not even what matters for the company hiring team. That's just something they have on their job posting. Maybe what really matters is the actual results that you can bring on XYZ competencies that they've laid out. And if you're like, well, I've done all of that in 6 years, that's even more favorable for you because you make bigger impact in a shorter amount of time. And so that's what I mean by focusing on the what you do have versus what you don't have. Because when we start focusing on other people, it's only going to get you sidetracked and discourage you and lower your confidence. What you can do is look at some of these other players in terms of what are some of the things they have that maybe you don't have as much of. And you're like, okay, knowing that, what can I do in my own track record to elevate some of the things that I am really strong in to make that part not as much of like an obvious miss, right? Or something that's not going to raise a flag in this hiring process. Okay, so it's all about perspective. It's a lot about mindset, and it's definitely a lot around communication and how you articulate that. So, again, just to reiterate, Prabiba, definitely check out my workshop on Nail Your Interview. It's going to help you a lot and crystallize much more what I'm sharing right now. Because I know we're almost at time, but just comment workshop over on Instagram and we'll send that your way. And if on LinkedIn, if you hop over on my LinkedIn, we also have the link right there in the comments of this live. Okay. Wow. Any last questions that you saw come through, Jeremy? I think we've gotten to pretty much all of them
Cover
over on
them.
Instagram and I think on YouTube as well, from what I can see.
Hmm.
Well, we want to thank you guys so much for joining us on this lovely Friday leading into the long weekend. If you are celebrating that, depending where you're joining us from, as a reminder, we go live for our weekly Career Accelerator Q&A now 2 times a week. Every Wednesday and every Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Our goal with these lives is to come here and cover the end to end of career acceleration with you, whether you're transitioning into a new role, looking for that next opportunity, whether you're feeling stuck or stagnant in your organizations and wanting to move to that next level of growth, whether you're feeling undervalued, underpaid, and wanting to elevate your income, whether you're looking to build up your confidence and communication and a lot of that soft skill strategy that will make a huge difference in your acceleration path. We don't leave any stone unturned here, guys, and we want to thank you for bringing such insightful questions today. We hope that you found this helpful. Of course, if we didn't get to your question for whatever reason, please do either comment it on the LinkedIn Live that will be showing as a replay on my LinkedIn page. If you don't already follow me on LinkedIn, please go ahead and do that. And if on Instagram, you can always DM me a question that might have come up afterwards, and we'll do our best to get you that answer. And then, as a last reminder, if any of you guys are at a point where you are like just feeling, okay, this is it for me, I need to make these next months of the year my best, we do really encourage you to book a free call with our team. We would love to get to know your needs better and share even more how we can work together to guarantee your success. We're seeing some amazing wins just this week alone from our clients who have landed their target offers, multiple six-figure salaries within just a few short weeks of working together. So things can happen really fast if you know what to do and how to do it with the right support. And I'm very fortunate to have an amazing team behind me with our incredible job search and recruitment experts on the inside of my program as well, and to be supported by Jeremy and also Lauren, who you know will join us on Wednesdays to support you too. Okay, guys. So we wish you a wonderful weekend. Take the time to unwind, refuel, refresh, and we will see you back here next week on Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Jeremy.